Distinguished guests, participants, welcome to this event organized by Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens, by CGIAR, by Fairtrade, and also my name is Liv Kaugure, and I will be the master of the ceremony and your moderator today, so welcome everyone. And without further ado, I would like to invite our distinguished guests for the opening remarks. So Monica Fraunlacher from Ban Ki-moon Center, and she's a CEO of Ban Ki-moon Center, so the floor is yours for the opening remark.
Thank you very much, Liva. Thank you. I hope that you can hear me now. Yes, absolutely. Dear distinguished guests, dear distinguished speakers, it's a pleasure for me to welcome you today to this session on the role of youth in smallholder agriculture, accelerating climate adaptation. This event is hosted together by CGIAR, FAO, Fairtrade International and the Ban Ki-moon Center. So we are happy that all of you are here and that this synergetic effort still tickles your fancy on the almost last day of the COP. As you know, the discussion of adaptation and smallholder farming is more crucial than ever. Climate adaptation remains dramatically underfunded. And probably many of you have read the Adaptation Gap Report 2023, where developing countries have evidently been recorded as completely underfunded. We need 10 to 18 times more funding than has currently been pledged. Adaptation finance for agriculture has not increased in lockstep with adaptation finance over the past couple of years. And smallholder farmers, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and in Southeast Asia, are indeed the backbone of food security, but they receive very little of climate finance. They continue to bear the brunt of the burden, and they contributed to it the least. They are themselves in a particularly vulnerable position, and yet when climate innovations are available, they are often lacking resources to actually translate them to the action on the ground. So today, we are definitely trying to make a mark with the voices that we have gathered here from sub-Saharan Africa, but also from Sri Lanka and from Germany and from the FAO and from CGIAR, to make a difference to what Ban Ki-moon has stated last week in The Guardian, and I quote here. Ban Ki-moon said, "It is a stark injustice that those who have contributed the least to the climate crisis are left to fend for themselves, receiving a woefully inadequate share of climate finance support." We at the Ban Ki-moon Center want to particularly elevate voices of women and of youth. And for this reason, we are very proud to launch today officially the Youth AgriChampions 23 demand paper. It is focusing today's debate with concrete demands that have been formulated by 7 of our AgriChampions, 17 smallholder farmers from Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, and Zambia. So it gathers concrete demands, and I do hope that all of you will read it. We will hear more about it in the panel subsequently. And 2 AgriChampions who have been part of the creation of this are here with us today. So special welcome to Caroline and Hafiz, but also alongside Shashila, a Fairtrade ambassador. I'm very happy that you are here from Sri Lanka. So today we will hear more about innovation, research, but how it translates to the ground. And with that, I do want to close my opening statement already, telling all of you a big thanks for being here and listening to amazing young change makers that are making the difference on the ground. Thank you very much.
Dear Monica, thank you for these welcoming remarks and also for pointing out the challenge that we are facing, that there is not enough climate finance going into the adaptation and also reaching those grassroots communities, including the young farmers and agri-entrepreneurs. And also thank you for already introducing the wonderful report that we will be discussing in a moment with this lineup panel. this morning. But without further ado, I would like to now invite the video message from Ban Ki-moon.
Dear distinguished colleagues, I'm honored to welcome you to our official COP28 side event, The Role of Youth in Smallholder Agriculture, Accelerating Climate Adaptation. People and communities everywhere around the world are already feeling the full brunt of climate change, often the ones who contributed the least to it. At the front lines are smallholder farmers, especially women and youth, who are facing the immense adverse effects and challenges day by day. Supporting and fortifying the resilience of smallholder farmers, especially women and youth, is imperative. This isn't just crucial for poverty alleviation and equality, but is fundamental in addressing food insecurity and climate impacts on people. We need intergenerational and cross-discipline dialogues like this one today to drive change and make sure that any measures in combating climate change serve the most vulnerable and in such our society and planet as a whole. Today, it is my great pleasure to officially launch this year's Youth AgriChampions demand paper, which focuses on capacity building for climate change adaptation in smallholder agriculture. I strongly support the demands made by young smallholders focusing on investment and efforts to reach smallholders on the ground. Provide them with resources and knowledge on climate adaptation, tailor interventions to the needs of women, as well as to bridge the gap between policy, science, and farmers. I wish you a productive discussion and encourage all of you to make bold commitments and take action for an equitable and sustainable future for all. Thank you. Shukran jazilan.
Thank you for this message, and for our next speaker and opening remarks, I would like to invite one of the co-hosts of this event, Liwinde Sibanda, who is CGIAR System Board member. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. It's good to be in a room that's lively and youthful. So there's hope for agriculture. More important, I think, there's hope for smallholder agriculture. I started my career in agriculture 30 years ago. And when I say career, that's when I had almost what they call in my village finished school. But I'm mindful that at times when you finish school after 4 years of education, you say, I've finished school. But that's when I had my PhD at 30. And smallholder agriculture at that stage was associated with poverty. And people were like, why go to university to study farming? So smallholder agriculture was associated with farming with a hand hoe. And it was for poor people. And to think someone comes back to a village equipped with a PhD for the poor was unheard of. 30 years later, 2023, we see a UNFCCC COP that dedicates energy to food, that dedicates a whole day to a food day. My first COP was COP 14 in Poznan, Poland. We were not allowed to talk food and agriculture in mainstream COP issues. That was side events on the periphery. 14 years later, COP 28, we are mainstream business, and I think we have a lot to celebrate. The third thing for me that we need to celebrate is the move we've made, not just from making smallholder agriculture attractive for job creation, but also moving from agriculture to food systems, from farm to fork. As a result, it's no longer about the hand hoe and the farm. It's about producing the food at farm level, but taking it to consumption and making sure it's nutrient dense, but most important, climate smart, produced in a sustainable way. So we never package these things that we have achieved, and all this has been achieved through dialogues such as the one we are having today. It's exciting for me to see a platform full of the youth, because when I spoke to them this morning, they are coming from diverse fields. We have political scientists, we have agronomists, we have people who've studied finance, we have people who are not in mainstream agriculture training, but have been attracted back to what matters, which is food systems. So congratulations to Ban Ki-moon and all the good work that you're doing. That's why you're a good partner for us at CGIAR. Just a quick pitch on why CGIAR and science is critical for now. We are living in a world where we've been doing one, either or, and never done poly things, multiple things at the same time. But as we face the poly crisis that are ahead of us and are happening now, we need to make sure that we multitask. And there's no better way of multitasking to address complex programs than through science. Through science that's been modernized, we're able to combat climate change. And the organization that I'm with, CGIAR, we have a vision where we want to transform the food systems, the water systems, and the land systems by delivering science and technologies in the face of climate change. This is our promise from now to 2030, and we want to touch 500 million smallholder farmers. That cannot be done by CGIAR alone. We need partners that take us to that last mile and get to the doorstep of our smallholder farmers. But we also need the researchers. So CGIAR has up to 10,000 staff members, scientists and support staff who are making sure we are doing the research that is required to take us forward. We are mindful that this research is no longer for my generation. This research has to be fresh, has to be relevant, and has to deliver results that can equip our smallholder farmers to adapt to climate change. Now, examples of what we've done, being mindful that partnership is key. We've developed a program that we call CAPTCHA, and the CAPTCHA of it is not spelled as capturing people, it's spelled as CAPSHA. Through CAPTCHA, we realize that the world we're in requires co-creation. You can't develop a solution for a smallholder farmer without partnering with them, number one. Number two, it requires educational training. You need to have that deep dive of understanding the science before you can generate the solutions. But most important, it requires partnerships. And that's what's exciting about the Ban Ki-moon initiative, the South-South relationships that you bring, because a lot is happening on the ground, and unless we capture it, adopt it, and improve it, and take it back, we will be flying aeroplanes which are piloted but are not landing on the ground. So enough of the pilots, let's equip our farmers with the technologies. Another, capacity sharing, and I emphasize sharing because capacity building is one thing, but the person you think you're building already has something to put on the table. So let's share those capacities so that the partnership is win-win. Through one of our centers, IITA, which is coordinated out of Nigeria and Africa, we already have a program for youth agripreneur training, which we started in 2012. This has been an exciting program where we are developing capacities of agripreneurs, and now over 20 countries have been covered with 7,000 young people who have created close to 1.5 million jobs. You're trained to be an agripreneur, you go out and set up your business. And we think that's an impactful way of making sure that demographic dividend that we pride ourselves on, that we are the most youthful continent, for example, in Africa, but we need to actualize that into opportunities. So one of our 13 centers, IITA, is focusing on training agripreneurs. But what are these new technologies that require the youth? We've also set up new digital platforms and frameworks because everything's gone digital. We no longer focus on the hand hoe as the tool for agriculture. Digitization is the way to go. And if we're talking of extension advisory service, there is no better way of reaching your partners, your farmers, than through the digital tools. But more important, these tools are allowing us to provide early warning information to our farmers. There's a time when you had extension workers going door to door, sitting farmers under a tree. Those days are gone. Farmers want to wake up knowing, what do you do today? What is the weather for today? And what are the predictions for the season and for the following year? We are currently in a season where we are facing El Nino in Africa, and already farmers who are on the ground need to be equipped with what seeds, when to plant, and to change from traditional routine seed to evidence-based information that will allow them to practice their farming properly. Now, let me also touch on some of the advanced work that we are doing: drought tolerance, pest resistance, and improving the nutritional quality of our food. As I said, it's exciting that we are no longer just at farm level. We're at the farm to the fork, from farm to fork, from the farm to the household. Because unless the food that we produce is nutrient dense, we are going to continue in most of our developing countries to be the museums for stunting. We have countries where 30% of the children born now are stunted. That means if we don't reverse that through nutrient-dense foods like the orange flesh sweet potato, which was produced through CGIAR partnerships, the fortified beans, which are a big win in Rwanda, we will not reverse that damage that happened in utero. By the time those children are 5, it's too late to catch them. So what better way to arrest the stunting than through food? And it's not ordinary food, it's food that is intentionally produced to be nutrient dense. There is no better time than now where we need science. The science of today will help us adapt to climate change. It will help us also mitigate the bad that we've been associated with as agriculture, where we emit methane, we emit carbon. There are solutions that have been developed, and the world needs science and CGIAR in particular. And why I say CGIAR, we are the largest public-funded partnership for scientific research in agriculture food systems that delivers public goods. We don't charge for the technology. And that is why partnering with all the youth, partnering with countries allows us to have impact. It's not about us, it's about global solutions at local level. We also have an interest in youth, in women. I'm sorry, the youth is a given, in women. We realize that close to 80% of the food that's produced and eaten in developing countries passes through the hands of women. Therefore, it's important to equip the women and the girl child with the technologies and also to make life easier for them. For instance, we are working in Nepal with women using climate-smart technology to do direct seeding for rice. That's to reduce the time that they had traditionally spent in producing rice. We are also working with them on green manuring, laser-informed land leveling, and just improving their income and productivity through smarter ways of producing food. Women and girls in rural areas are amongst the most marginalized that we know, and they are yet the ones most likely to adopt the technologies because they've been left behind for a long time. So I urge you in your work, and you already know this, that focus on lifting women, focus on lifting girl child. For us at CGIAR, there's no better way of doing this than through science that delivers technologies that improves the livelihoods of people. In terms of our impact areas, we have 5. We look at impacts on climate adaptation and mitigation, which is the focus of this conference. We also focus on gender, making sure we're specifically targeting via gender. Third, we make sure that nutrition, we can count on the work that we do that has a positive impact of nutrition, biodiversity, and number 5, livelihoods and job creation. If we could all have a toolbox that looks at those 5, I'm sure we would achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, because all 17 Sustainable Development Goals touch on food. So there's no better topic than we have when we talk development than dealing with food, dealing with farmers, and dealing particularly with smallholder farmers, because they are the backbone of the societies that feed the world. So congratulations to the Ban Ki-moon Center. Congratulations to the youth who've taken up this challenge to embrace smallholder farming. And congratulations for devoting your professions to taking those that have been traditionally left behind and bringing them through. 2030, we want to celebrate the successes. Our promise to you is 500 million smallholder farmers who will be able to say, we've modernized our agriculture, we've reduced stunting and malnutrition, we've created jobs for our children, but most important, we are climate smart. So congratulations and thank you.
Lewinda, thank you for these welcoming remarks and also for pointing out so many important aspects and reminding that agriculture didn't land in this space. We all, in partnership, have been working, and that's why hard to bring it in the climate conversation, and that's why it's so present here at COP28 and Emirates Declaration. And I think I heard yesterday where they announced that 150 countries have already endorsed this declaration, and that's why it's also at the center of the discussions at this COP. So it is huge achievement. But more importantly, also thank you for pointing out the capacity building, the innovation, the access to the technology for youth, for women, and for girls, and pointing out that this cannot be achieved working solely, and we need partnerships to empower the workers of the agri-food systems. And I think in another discussion I heard that the partnerships is the future leadership. So I would like to also thank you for pointing out the importance of this. So with that, I would like to conclude our first segment with the opening remarks and open up our discussion. So as I pointed out, we had and already introduced earlier, we have a lineup panel here. We have 2 AgriChampions. We have Caroline Moko, who is smallholder organic farmer from Kenya. We have Hafiz Mohamed Musa, who is an agri-entrepreneur from Ghana, and both of them are also AgriChampions by Ban Ki-moon Center. We also have Vivian Atkos, who is engagement policy and advocacy expert in CGIAR. Shashina Dilani, who is a Fairtrade ambassador, and also, not last but not least, Dr. Wolfgang Zorbach, who is head of the Division of Climate Change and Water in Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture in Germany. So thank you all for being here. And now I would like to open or ask to introduce more of the challenges that you have faced and a bit unpacked what has been outlined in this the report that we just launched in this event. So first I would like to give word to Caroline.
Thank you very much. I'll start with just explaining about the issues that we are actually facing on the ground. In our village, we are having it we're finding it very, very difficult to get access to extension officers. You find like where I am farming, we have like one extension officer, the ratio of 1,000 farmers, and you find it's a bit challenging for only one officer to be able to provide their extension services. We've had around 5 to 6 failed seasons of rainfall. We've not been receiving adequate precipitation, and this has really led to a decrease in our yields. That is, our production is really affected. And if we had our officers on the ground, maybe they could be able to advise us on different ways of how to deal with these issues that we are currently experiencing. So you find that our officers are either short-staffed or they lack the budgets to be able to facilitate these kind of trainings to farmers in our villages. So, and in countries, you find in places where these officers are able to do this particular training, they are just offering it maybe in piecemeals, because you find maybe the like yes, like for example, you find like they have a particular, say, training document, yeah, but you find most farmers are not able to understand, or maybe there's a kind of a language barrier between the extension officers and the farmers, yeah. So I believe that these are some of the challenges that we are facing, and also Hafiz can join in.
Building it up from extension services, according to Ghana Census of Agriculture in 2018, for example, highlights the ratio of smallholder farmers to extension services, and we are looking at one extension officer to 1,500 farmers. That's like unimaginable. It will take averagely like 3 months to be able to cover all the farms of these people. This is just to show how essential extension services need to be looked at and making sure that we revolutionize it. Another component, talking about challenges, is in relation to capacity building, most especially for women. In an everyday community in rural Ghana, for instance, women, especially in Africa and even in general, have so much of unpaid care work coupled with their regular economic activities of farming. And we often don't look at the different needs of these actor groups or farmer groups, looking at male farmers versus female farmers. And so we often see trainings held in centralized location where if you are looking at the two individuals involved, men are easily and more able, even financially, to be able to attend these centralized trainings, unlike women. We are even talking about issues of disseminating information about trainings. For some reason, some trainings may end up either passing through digital channels. And research also tells us that you have male farmers, easily accessing or have more access to digital technology than women. And that ought to change in terms of the channel, in terms of how we do trainings, and even the methodologies. It cannot be conducting trainings under trees all the time. We need to be able to look at the methodologies also, infusing digital tools to make sure that these trainings reach not only men, but making sure that women are participating actively, considering their needs as well as their own situations.
I also believe because we come from a patriarchal society in Africa, you find that once these trainings maybe are done with all genders involved, the males and the females, the males always have upper hand. Like, we feel for the women, you're not able to talk about maybe what your views, because considering it's a patriarchal society, we have to respect the males first, and then maybe then we can be given an opportunity to present our issues, yeah. And we have so many we have so many issues we would like to address as women and the youth if we are given the platform to do it appropriately.
Yeah, one final one I want to highlight also is the disconnect between science, research, and practice. And I'm so glad to hear from the opening remarks when Linda Way mentioned about the fact that they are doing remarkable, very astonishing research. But then there is that disconnect. The farmers don't really get to know about some of these research findings. 2 weeks ago, I was reading about, they call it decolonizing knowledge in development, and where researchers interact with farmers in their research, but then they do the publication and they don't come back to the farmers to share the findings. And that creates the disconnect, and we need to change that also. And it starts with conversation like this and making sure that we translate it down.
And having more farmers in rooms like this, we find that there's a very big gap between research and practice. If farmers and researchers can be put in the same rooms, a lot can happen. I love the fact that Ms. Lindiwe talked about the orange sweet potatoes. As an organic retailer, we actually sell loads of them in our store in Nairobi. In a week, we are able to sell around, say, 300 kgs, which is also a good source of income to our farmers. And this particular orange-fleshed sweet potato has proven to be drought resistant. Yeah. So if we get more trainings about planting the drought-resistant crops, I believe farmers can be able to adapt to climate change. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so thank you, Ms. Lindiwe, about the point of orange-fleshed sweet potatoes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for pointing out already quite few the issues and challenges that you are facing and that are outlined in this demand paper. Just to summarize, the access to the extension services, and I think the numbers that you were mentioning, one officer for at least 1,000 or more farmers, it's shocking. And also the challenge that you face in terms of the training, the access for the youth, but more importantly, also thank you for pointing out access for women to this training, as well as the disconnect, because often also during the past 2 weeks, we've seen a lot of solutions exist, but how do we transfer these solutions actually to the farmers and to the actually people who can implement them and the solutions that has been generated for them. So thank you for pointing out these challenges. Now I would like to turn to Shashisha. What similarities you see from Asia and from your experience? What was mentioned already from the two AgriChampions?
Good morning, everyone, and opportunity to raise the voice of Sri Lankan farmers, and we are promoting, I'm Shashila and I'm working in Monaragal Organic Farmers Association in Sri Lanka, and I am a Fairtrade ambassador. Actually we are promoting the organic farming, and also we are growing spices, coconut and herbs and fruit crops. Actually, within 2 years, during the 2 years with Monaragal Organic Farmers Association, I have engaged with the farmers and listened to their struggles and the questions and the issues what they have faced. And according to the observations and the discussion had with them, we have identified there's a significant impact of climate change on their farming in different ways. Actually, all the crops cultivation in our area, they are depending on the rainfall. But with this climate change, it will the with this climate change, we can see there's the variability in the rainfall pattern and rainfall intensity, and also increase in the temperature of environment, and happening extreme events such as. So it is very difficult to adapt to those climatic conditions with their economic level, and I think agricultural adaptation is very expensive, so they have not ability to financial services. So that's the current situation in our country.
Thank you also for sharing the challenges of the farmers and the observations, also what you pointed out in terms of the access to the extension services, also the climate information services, and also how to deal with the climate impacts. Now I would like to turn to Vivian, who is representative from CGIAR, and hearing from the youth and from the farmers. I would like to ask you, how does science recognize the challenges in the context of capacity building and with smallholders, with the colleagues and the speakers identified before? And what are the existing emerging agriculture innovations that are putting young people at the center of agri-food system transformation?
Thank you. And I'd like to build onto what our chair of the board has just spoken to, Professor Sibanda. She mentioned that within the CGIAR we have impact area platforms, and the one I work for is the Gender Impact Platform. Agenda is actually an acronym meaning generating evidence and new directions for equitable results. So we work across whether it's with youth and for youth, also women and also men. So we do amplify and synthesize research, we fill in evidence gaps that exist, and we also set directions for CGIAR and partners to have impact on gender equality, opportunities for youth, and also social inclusion in ag and food systems. So back to your question, we actually do agree with what the farmers working with Ban Ki-moon have found concerning access to the capacity building gaps that exist. But also, we also need to recognize that there isn't much research on youth. The moment that we all started working with youth, and when we started hearing more people saying we need youth around the table, most of us ran to implementation without really going back to the research to try and find out what does the research show. But actually, probably the issue might have been that there was nothing much that had already been done to research on youth engagement in agriculture. And what we've also found out is that we tend to bundle youth as one group, and the image that you find when you talk about youth is of a young man. And that's why I'd like to again congratulate you, because on the cover of the page, we actually see, it's not very common when you talk about youth to actually see a young woman. And part of it is because they profile youth as young men. So going through this report, you'll see that that has been addressed. But as we go for our interventions with youth, then we have to profile them. We have to target our interventions. If you talk about a 15-year-old mother, she's an adolescent mom. She doesn't fit in as a youth. That's not what their peers. Caroline will not see her as a youth because she has a baby. And if you talk about the more established farmers, they still will not see such a farmer as established. So there are also these segmentations that we need to be aware of when we are dealing with the youth. And so we are calling for targeting even in our youth interventions. And then the issue of gender norms, we know that this restricts our capacity building initiatives, you heard them say. You find that in some communities, if a woman vaccinates an animal, I'm giving an example from the International Livestock Research Institute, that is one of the CG centers, you find that within that community, they believe that if a woman is vaccinating, whether it's livestock or chicken, then they will die. So what does that mean? That they cannot really offer any real solutions. And in other communities in Rwanda, you'll find that, also Ghana, we found that at times the women cannot really leave their homes to be able to attend the trainings. So even as we work around these issues that they have raised, we need to be aware that then we have to look at innovative ways of still reaching these women. And that is why in Ghana we piloted a program. Again, this is an example from the International Livestock Research Institute, where there was a delivery of vaccines to women. The women will come together, and because a vaccine, you can't have when you open a vaccine, we learned from the COVID time, they would open one bottle and vaccinate several people. So it can't be that a woman is ordering just one dose of the vaccine. You have to come together as a group, then you order the vaccine. But since they cannot leave their homes, what happened was that they will come together, they will then order the vaccines, and this will be brought to the local store via drones. So that is one of the technologies that we have seen working. In Uganda, we saw what has been working again with the work from the CGIAR is that there has been use of innovative video-based extension services. And so they combine video services together with the use of messages that come through the phones of some of these women, because we know that as much as we are talking about delivery of agro-advisories via mobile phones, women are limited in terms of, well, the number of women who own mobile phones is way much less. And when you talk about even access to internet, it's much lower. So then it means that you cannot really have one technology. You can't focus on one innovation. You have to do a mix or a combination. That is why for this particular project, they had to use the video-based extension services, but also the women would also have access to advisories via their phones. I'll turn on to your second question, just two examples, because again, Professor Lindiwe gave excellent examples on innovations from the CG. She mentioned the orange flesh sweet potato, where the International Potato Center has youth working along the agricultural value chain. Some of them are seed producers, some of them are engaged in value addition, where they process the sweet potato for baby food. We've had them coming up with porridge, we've had them coming up with, quick meals, crisps from the orange flesh sweet potato. So you see that that brings about jobs, job opportunities for the youth. Another example was with the multi-crop threshers. This is an example again from another CG center, which is the Alliance of Biodiversity and CGIAR. The bean, when you harvest beans, it's really, when you harvest it and dry it, then they will use sticks so that they can be able to remove the beans from the pods. So you find that when the Alliance of Biodiversity and CGIAR, through the Pan-African Bean Alliance Research Program, introduced multi-crop threshers, then the time that women will spend threshing their beans reduced. They will thresh for just 1 hour and they will get 8 bags of beans. And that was when we had 3 people operating. But when they were doing it manually, then we would have 3 people working for 10 days, because they have to do it manually and then dry the beans. So you find that that's also another innovation which has solved the issue of job opportunities for women and youth, because they will do this as women and youth groups. So there was that income opportunities. Then they reduced post-harvest losses. Then there was the issue of drudgery, because you mentioned unpaid care work. They have so much other work that they need to do. So when you introduce these machines, then you find that they are better able to manage their time. So for now, I would like to stop there and just give you, well, there's one more. I think it's important. In Tanzania, what we also saw was that it was only men that were involved in the poultry business. So what happened was that there was a social media campaign that, again, the CG was involved in. And this social media campaign was where they would use comics instead of profiling just what I was talking about. Instead of having men, showcasing the poultry business, then you'll have women working side by men. And there's always that concept where we call positive masculinities within gender. So where you work with women to address the issues that affect men. Because I came across a point where a woman had planted the orange flake sweet potato. The husband came and uprooted the crop, saying that he owns the land and he needs to farm maize. So, but when they work side by side, you find that they're able to pick up the innovations much better, and you have better success. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving quite a number of examples how CGIAR has been working with women and identifying also solutions to multiple challenges and already kind of pointed out by the previous speakers and responding to some of the solutions to the challenges they were identifying. Now I would like to turn to Wolfgang and ask you, from your perspective and from the perspective of government, and maybe more particularly from experience from Germany, which issues in youth participation in agriculture adaptation do you see in your work, and what are the programs you are implementing?
Yeah, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you very much to the Ban Ki-moon Center for inviting me. And by this invitation, it didn't make it easy for me because, well, I'm not a woman. I'm not young. But I have got children, and I assume they are young. So I think I can tell you a little bit more about my thoughts, and I hope that I'm in this round a positive masculinities.
You are.
I give my very best. Yeah, maybe one example from my ministry, what we are doing. Youth is playing a big role in the discussions in our ministry, not only in terms of projects and projects which are financed in Africa, also in our daily work. Just recently we had a young lady, she was doing an internship in my ministry, and she was staying with us for some weeks. She studied policy advice or policy communication, and in my eyes it is, or it was also with this lady, very important that from the first day on we involved her in our work. She had to do the same work as the others did, of course not with that experience what the others had, but by learning what's going on. And I think that's the same in the field as with policy making. And that's very important because maybe that's a little bit provocative, but sometimes when we're talking about youth, I know it's not up to the Ban Ki-moon Center because you involve the youth. The people try to tell something about youth and how important it is, but at least it's something like greenwashing. Let me call it youth washing. And that's something where we have to be careful. If we're talking about youth, if we're talking about women, we have to bring them into the arena and work together with them, and from my point of view, to give our experience to them. And that's a question of education and training, of course, as you mentioned, the extension services, but it's also a question of acceptance. And to be honest, I mean, it's a well-established name. We are talking about smallholder farms and smallholder farmers, but small means it's a little thing. But if I hear that we have 500 million smallholder farmers, in fact, these are family farms, family-owned farms. So you have probably 2 or 3 generations working there and getting their expenses from the farm. And I think that's also something very important, that we don't split up youth and old guys like I am, and maybe something in between. So we have to bring those people together, young people with the others. And the same with your element here in the document, it said one demand is connecting policy, science and practice. your practice, I'm policy. Science is up there. That's very important that these close relationships, that they exist and that they are lively. I think that's a very important point. We give money to scientists to conduct projects, and it's also in Germany very important to work closely together with the extension services and with the farmers, so that the results from science are going immediately, if they're practical, to the farmers. So that's also a very important point in my eyes. Maybe I stop with that. I come back later on, maybe for your question, but for the start.
Thank you.
Some few remarks.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for pointing out actually how that we need to work together. We need to break the silos and see how we address farming, the agriculture systems at once, and also for pointing out as one and pointing out that we don't work in the for the excuse me for the science and research, and that's how this is interlinked, that the science needs to inform the policymakers as well as it should be, the solutions should be made available through the policies, through the implementation also to the farmers, and vice versa also for farmers to inform what are the challenges and what is needed to address these challenges, what they face. And with that, I would like to move to the second part. So now we heard about a lot of challenges and also a couple of already the solutions that exist and that are addressed and through different practices. I would like to go back actually to our farmers and our youth representatives. So now we have this demand paper launched today. So I would like to ask to introduce the specific demands of the youth demand paper and what are the potential solutions. So you mentioned a couple of the challenges, so I would like to turn back to all three of you and hear from you. How do you see how this can be, the challenges that you mentioned, how can they be resolved?
So we would like to call upon the international community to facilitate the necessary resources that are required by the extension services, extension officers who offer these wonderful services to the farmers. And in one way they can do this is to be able to spot the star farmers on the particular areas, in the particular villages, whereby they can be able to set up farmer schools, field trainings, whereby you can be able to gather different farmers from your locality to a specific farm, whereby all the trainings can be conducted. And I wasn't able to finish mentioning some of the challenges. Of course, we talked about the failed seasons of rainfall, that is the drought, but we also experienced quite a lot of rainfall towards October, November, El Nino. I think most of you have heard about it. And farmers lost quite a lot of crops. You find that a number of the farmers I work with, especially there's one farmer who told me he lost 3 acres of tomatoes, all planted sustainably. Another farmer lost a lot of his cattle to the floods. Say around 2030, they were all carried away by the floods. So and when we are experiencing these dry seasons, which way can we as farmers find a solution? I was talking to one of the representatives from Fairtrade organization, and I told her if we are able to get proper training and maybe access to funds, we can be able to dig, say, a community borehole, whereby we dig the community borehole, all the farmers pay a small, say, incentive to take care of the borehole, and you find you can be able to farm all year round without any issues. when it comes to the El Nino, maybe we can set up, when we have a lot of rainfalls, maybe we can set up water catchment areas on the different farms. Again, finances, yeah, whereby we can dig dams. When it rains, we are able to store water that we can use, even if not all year round, we can at least use the water for 6 months to do our farming using irrigation. So we need we would like to call upon the international community to facilitate the extension officers with resources. Yeah.
So in the area of capacity gaps, especially looking at the case for women, first of all will be to encourage governments of all countries to commit to bridging that gap in terms of capacity building, making sure that we're able to tailor trainings to the needs as well as the situations in terms of community and even district or country levels to meet the needs and availability of women. Now, we can do this in several ways. I mean, the simplest of it all is to making sure that we first of all look at timing. I've seen trainings happen as early as 8 a.m. I mean, if we are looking at the realities where women in some communities may not be able to participate in such a training, a little shift of training times goes a long way to help getting women engaged and participate in the training. I'm happy to share that. Last year I led a training with my team in the Yendi area in Ghana. We did something crazy in a sense. So instead of having regular trainings, maybe under a tree, we did a training at 9 p.m. using a solar-powered projector, video-based training like you mentioned. And that came out with a lot of numbers because people had done everything that they needed to do on a regular day, trying to relax, came around. And then it was a very interesting conversations because people are not thinking about anything else. It's all about what matters at that moment. And that was a good thing. And it's something that I would like to encourage and then hoping sure that we are able to push and make a drive to accelerate some of these happenings. In as much as we might want to accelerate it, it might also come down to other issues of cost. But capacity, we need to see capacity building as an investment when we are looking at issues of training farmers, most especially tailoring it to the needs of women. And that is it on the women's side. Now, in terms of connecting it to policy, connecting research science to policy, I think first of all, this conversation right here had to be scaled down. I believe a lot in scale down processes because, for instance, we are here at COP. Some of the negotiations are happening. I know some of the conversations around smallholder farmers, and then we get back and we don't even communicate some of the conversations or the negotiations, the outcome that came up. And that is something we need to start from. And then we, at CGIAR, in my head, I always pronounce it as CGIAR. Yes. Yeah, so as CGIAR, not the one we smoke, of course. Yes, we need to ensure that in as much as we are doing national and regional research, let's also do local-based communications of the research outcomes to the farmers that we work with. And I also want to connect it to what you said about sharing capacity sharing. There have issues of repetitions in terms of farmers and research or even policy. I remember someone was telling me about her experience about the changing concepts as far as good agronomic practice trainings goes on. Today they come and they are training you about climate smart technologies. Tomorrow you are hearing regenerative agriculture. Tomorrow you are hearing agroecology. So sometimes it's like we keep farmers in a whole mental mess. And that is in as much as definitely climate change affects farming and agriculture food system rapidly, we need to find a better way of making sure that these trainings are well structured and communicating the right things. Because all this from climate smart, regenerative, agroecology, and other new and evolving practices, if we are not really, find one way of streamlining it, then we end up having a lot of confusions and then we end up having a lot of chaotic implementations. So that has to happen from grassroots to the top level and vice versa.
I believe what Hafiza said is true. Farmers need a simple language, and it all boils down to sustainability, agroecology, organic agriculture, biodynamics, regenerative agriculture, all those, I don't know what word to give them, but imagine going to a farmer in the village and telling them, you have to farm using agroecological methods. That farmer is going to look at you and ask you, what did you just say? You know? Then another one will say regenerative agriculture. Okay, this is fine. These are the words which I hear that we are supposed to be using when, say, farmers, you're looking for funding, you know? You have to use the words regenerative agriculture, you have to use agroecology. Why can't I just approach a donor and tell them, my name is so-and-so, and these are the ways, these are the practices that I use on my farm. Be it climate smart, it's okay to put a name to it, but it's okay for farmers, even if they don't know whether it's climate smart, like they don't have a particular name to it, you know. Just explain what you're doing, how you're doing it in a sustainable way, and yeah, you can be able to continue with the conversation. I don't know, I don't think I have anything else to add, but we'll continue with the conversation.
Thank you. And before I get back to you, to Shashila, I saw Wolfgang already wanted to respond, so I will give you the floor to respond what you just heard. So how do you see how the governments can respond and can help to the challenges and the solutions and the call that you just heard?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add something to your mental mess. An experience which I had when I started my career in the climate change arena in Germany. It was noticed that there is nearly nothing available for adaptation in agriculture. So we didn't have any adaptation strategy. So my boss told me, hey Wolfgang, please start to draft an adaptation strategy for agriculture in Germany. Well, I did it, no problem. After half a year, I took the document and went to some farmers and told them something about adaptation. They opened their eyes, saying, hey, what is that guy telling me? We are doing adaptation for hundreds of years already. Every year, we look how the weather conditions are, and then we do our farming methods, and we adapt to that. Well, I said, yes, I understand, but did you notice that the situation outside in the world has dramatically changed? And we are not talking about adaptation at least, but about resilience of farms. Resilience to El Nino effects, or resilience to droughts and floods and all these kind of things. So that's something that made them thinking. Now the strategy exists and we're working with that. And it is very important background also for another project which we are financing or supporting. It's called Farm Food Climate. It's a group of young people. None of them is older than 30. And they support young startups with new ideas regarding agroecology and regenerative agriculture and agroforestry and food waste and everything. More than 100 startups. And nevertheless, our minister said that's very important to support them, because from there we get the new ideas we need for the future. Because if we talk about climate change adaptation and accelerating this adaptation, we're talking not about today or tomorrow. We're talking about the situation in 20 and 30 and 40 years. And for that reason, these things are probably important, but not for now, but for the future. That's something we should have in mind. And they are really, really active. If you go there to these young people and to these startups, you coming out of the room and being flashed, because they are so active and convinced of their work. That's really great to see and helpful. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for sharing this. So I would like to get back to you, Shashila, hearing also on the demands. So what similarities do you see in your region, and also as a Fairtrade ambassador from the small-scale agri-entrepreneurs? What are the similarities that you would like to share also in terms of the needs?
Actually, when we consider about the capacity building on climate change, the main issue is the financial issues, because we have not access to the financial services. We can't get the loan for the youth. But as an organization, we have implemented some practices to adapt to this climate change as much as we can. We have implemented the model farm project for the 12 farmers in our farmer group with the help of Fairtrade map. And also we continue the control one also to check the results, it is suitable for this area or not. And also we have implemented the economic feasible climate smart agricultural practices to adapt to this climate change impacts. And the examples are, we have implementing the cover cropping and mulching and nutrition management practices, and also soil conservation practices and rainwater harvesting practices like that. As well as we have organized the planting event to minimize the emission of the carbon, because plants are the main carbon sink. And we have organizing training programs and awareness programs to educating the farmers regarding the climate change and what are the climate change impacts, and what are the what are the suitable climate change adaptation methods for their land. And those are the things that have been done by us to mitigate the climate change impact.
Thank you. So thank you for sharing this, and I think the 2 points that I keep hearing is indeed the access to the finance, and how the climate finance can reach really the grassroots communities and the young farmers, but as you, Wolfgang, pointed out, in general, farmers, because there's a lot of, well, there is climate finance going in agri-food systems, and as FAO we have done the studies, and in fact actually the climate finance is proportionally decreasing over the last years. But then also the question is how can these funds and allocated by financial mechanisms can reach the farmers. And the other point is also the frustration in terms of the different practices and terms that we use in the international community. And of course we are sinners here representing FAO. Obviously, we work on climate smart agriculture, on agroecology, on you name it, no? And there's no silver bullet. So I would like to get back to you, Vivian. How can we fix this? No? How can we work with the farmers, and how can we move away from these kind of, let's say, buzzwords, and actually, make these solutions and implement them without labeling them?
I think, as we have had, the young people do have the solutions. And I was actually impressed while we were preparing for COP28 for the Kenyan country delegation. We had young people who came and they presented to us an app, and they were talking about using artificial intelligence for climate diplomacy. So these were young negotiators, and they said they're just coming, I'm now connecting to the policy aspect. And they were saying, we are just coming into the policy space, and you had Prof. Sibanda talk about being there at, I think, the COP14, was it? So if I'm a young negotiator and I'm negotiating and I need to go back, I need to understand what happened in COP in 2014, and we are now in 2023, where does that lead me? Or where does that leave me? So what they had done is they had come up with an app using artificial intelligence that will synthesize all the texts, whatever had been agreed on, and so it was becoming quite easier for them to be able to follow the negotiations without having to, go document by document. But back to your question, I think it's all about, as you said, funding, financing, and we know that financing goes, well, most of the times with numbers. If I'm going to fund something, then I want to know who is it that I'm targeting, where are they, what are they doing, and what can they do? And that still just brings us back to the point of the need for us to have gender disaggregated data. We have the data, even as research, part of it, we haven't quite gotten there yet, but what we are missing is who are these young women, who are these young men, where are they, what are they doing? Then, so when you fill in these data gaps, then it's easy to convince people, okay, this is where you need to put in the money. So let it not be the case of the blind leading the blind, but let us lead and introduce innovations from an informed perspective. That's what I'd say.
Thank you. Wolfgang, do you have the solution?
Of course, always. No, in fact, I don't have it really here. But first remark to that question is, please don't reduce the whole thing down to financing. Of course, money is important and nothing would happen without money. But we need the people and we need the knowledge. So extension services, as you mentioned, education and training, all these things, they are important, and we need some kind of resilience. So what I can see, if money is there and there is a 3 years project with that money, then it's counted as climate-related money, which is going into one or the other country. But after the project, everything is going on as it was before. So that's not that point. If we talk about money, we should talk about money which goes into projects which have the resilience in the focus, and both at least adaptation and also mitigation issues, though if you look at the African countries, adaptation is the main issue for them. And we had that discussion 2 days ago in our BMEL side event, that it sounded a little bit too simple. I am a smallholder farmer, give me money, I will do the rest. And that's not that case. On the other hand, FAO with the study, and you're right, if I look into climate finance, if it's GCF or the Adaptation Fund or money coming from the countries, I think we could do more. But then, please, more focus also. Not distribute the money to somewhere and let's see what happens. It should be more focused. And that's the question where I don't have the answer now, how that could happen. And maybe there's something for the future, or where Ban Ki-moon Center could think about how we can get a more focused financing for projects which are looking at more resilience, what I said, for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Thank you. Yeah, I think over the discussions for the last 2 weeks, we've heard also a lot from the bilateral and multilateral donors. Also, how do we add the value for the money that is invested? And actually, yeah, how there's no answer. No, we are learning, and it's a complex challenge. And thank you for sharing that. We need to look more into the people, into knowledge, and into building the capacities, and not narrow it down. If there will be more finance, then we will kind of address all the challenges that were just pointed out. We have about 15 minutes left. I would like to invite or ask if there are any comments, observations, or any questions from the audience. Don't be shy, please.
No problem. Who has money?
Gentleman over there. And feel free also to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Innocent Homhanj. I come from Uganda. I'm a tea farmer, and again, I'm the Fairtrade ambassador also, representing Eastern Central Africa. I've been in COP for almost a week, and we appreciate that food has been at the center of this COP so far. But from what I've seen from the Sub-Saharan Africa, of course, our countries, of course, depend on food. And most populations in Sub-Saharan Africa, the biggest percent are youth. So I appreciate research, connectivity with government policy and implementation of these policies. There has been a gap, but I really thank SIGA for that. Ban Ki-moon bringing up young champions to the perspective of agri-food systems. However, we need to have more engagements with governments, because agriculture has all been for a long time unattractive to the youth, because youth want quick money, quick solution, things that really work. Like for example, I am a tea farmer. These days, the tea sector in the country has collapsed because we are investing $1.4 per kilogram of tea, and we are receiving $0.8 per kilogram. Do you think that business or that agricultural activity, is it attractive to use? No. People started to approach the tea, but now how do we make quick interventions to sort of current issues so that we base from there to become so resilient? I think more research has to be done and shared, because they say research without sharing information to the adapters or to the source of the problem, that is not research. Research must be attributing some great change, basically in this context of farmers. So I'm very happy that when I heard that Ban Ki-moon is holding this, I said this is a great opportunity for us from Uganda to also partner with them as Fairtrade, also the collaboration that Fairtrade has really been at the center of bringing farmers issues, and I feel more collaborations will be done with Fairtrade, because Fairtrade does ESCO businesses, and I think most people will be welcome to join us to drive the point of smallholder farmers in this world. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing this, and I think also it kind of in summary, I would like to go back what I was saying earlier, and what we heard is, it seems, the partnerships. We cannot just rely on the governments or on the research. We all have to work together, and also organizations that you referred to, Ban Ki-moon Center, Fairtrade, as well, bringing and working with the farmers and kind of highlighting the challenges, and then bringing that to the policymakers, and kind of making that dialogue that we are having also here today, but also outside this space. I saw there was another hand. Over to you.
Yes, hi. My name is Tabo Leneye, and I'm at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I run the Applied Research Center at the university, and we sit obviously squarely within research, capacity building, and now sort of stepping our toe into practice. One of the things that we are doing is setting up a demonstration campus for agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and I know this is sort of word soup, like a lot of the folks have said. Working with rural farming communities in Pennsylvania and in the Midwest. We are now starting to partner with universities in Sub-Saharan Africa, starting with Kenya, Great Lakes University. And the question I have is for the panel, what are your thoughts? I understand this sort of question about the disconnect between science research and practice, as one of the panelists said. What is the role that you see the universities can play within this space, given that we are trying to sort of extend, into the communities and bring sort of our students as well as the learnings directly into the communities through these demonstration campuses. But I also am hearing that a lot of this needs to extend beyond that. And so I'd just love to hear thoughts on that question. Thank you.
There's another hand, and then I will get back to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Richard Kachungu. I'm from Zambia. I run a non-profit organization called Young Emerging Farmers Initiative. I'm also an AgriChampion under the Ban Ki-moon Center. I think I have a question for my two colleagues up there, except the youth. I think it's directed to the other colleagues. Yes. My question is, do you believe young people are being taken seriously as partners in the food system? Because I think I'm asking that question because, for example, the example that I can give you is we have situations where young people, in terms of funding, when they are being funded, the resources that are allocated to their intervention are usually very minute, considering the investment that is taken to big corporations that are sort of aggregating and so forth. You hear situations where young people are given $10,000 and then this company is giving $10 million US. And then you're wondering the disparity between the two. Do you think you are integrating or you're taking young people seriously? Because you can't keep on investing little resources to young people and then you sit there and then you say we are engaging young people. Because if you value someone, you put the figure or resource towards that. So I'm trying to wonder how these situations are built. I don't know how these resources are located, especially when it comes to young people. So I think, please, highlight on that issue.
Thank you. So, is there any volunteer who would like to? There were two questions. There was one, what is the role of the universities in linking the gap between the innovation, the science, the practices? And the other one was more, I think, Wolfgang, I guess to you, and Vivian also.
Yeah, I could comment on the universities and also youth. Yeah, that's fine. So on the university question, I think how we have worked with universities, at least in the context of the Gender Impact Platform, which is part of the CG, is we have worked with them as knowledge partners. We work with them closely. For example, last year we did work with Wageningen University to bring together researchers. We also brought together funders for an annual gender conference. So this was just an opportunity to bring together different players working on youth issues, women issues, and to have that conversation around what works, what are the innovations that are coming out, and how can we better support the various people that are working within and for the food system. So that's how I see it, knowledge partners, capacity building partners, and also, well, I've had talk that there's the education hub within the Green Zone. I also see them as key when we can be able to diffuse this information that we have now, and point to them that, you know, there is also a career path within research in food systems. Because you find that within this field, there are not so many young girls taking up ag as a career. So I think we could use that as a mentorship opportunity. That's how I see it. And on the second question on whether we are taking youth seriously, we are. As I just mentioned, I'm aware of the program with young negotiators, you know, because there has been a lot of transition with the people who've been seasoned negotiators, but now I also had one of our young people saying that we've many times been told that youth should sit around the table, but youth are the table. So we talk about youth being the table. That is why within the CG we have all these innovations, and we have worked with youth to identify opportunities within the agricultural, the food systems value chain. You heard about the agripreneurs program with IITA that has really provided those opportunities. So I do believe that we are taking them seriously, and I am one of them.
Thank you.
All right, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first question, what about the young people, or what about the youth? What do you mean, youth by age or youth by heart? Question from my side. No, to be honest, from my experience, yes, we're taking it seriously. We, as I mentioned already in the beginning, I had young people in my team, or have young people in my team. They are involved in our work. It's the same in the so-called Team Germany. We have young people in our daily coordination meetings, and they are asked to bring in their perspective, if there's enough time, I have to mention, but well, they are part of the whole story. Or if I look into our research organizations, of course, there are always young people doing their PhDs or their master degrees and so on. So that's daily work, and I think that's important, that it is really daily work, that it's nothing separate, saying, oh yes, after 6 o'clock in the afternoon, then you say, and now I have to include the youth. No, that's not the case. It has to be daily work, daily practice. Concerning the research, in Germany we have also demonstration farms, but these are not artificial farms which are located at a university. They are also there, but that's normal farmers with some scientists at their side. So they are doing the normal farming and get advice from the scientists, and the scientists have the task to evaluate whether that worked, what they did. So at least it's some kind of on-farm research, which is in my eyes very important, that you go down to the practice. And what we observed also, that's not a one-way road. Yeah, because the scientists, the researchers, they very often learn from the farmers. Or we have here the discussions also about indigenous people, which have a lot of knowledge, and they bring it to the scientists, the other way around. So that's also important. And another element, if you ask what shall we do, is the socio-economic aspect. It's very often forgotten, because we are discussing, if we talk about adaptation, can we take crop A instead of crop B, because crop A is more drought resistant. Okay, that's a technical question. But what about the socio-economic aspects? Why are you accepting something? Can you make money with it? What about the family? What's the family thinking about that? Or the neighborhood? Yeah, all these aspects, they are very often not part of the research projects, and that makes me a little bit concerned, and it's probably important for the future.
No. No, thank you. We have here a little clock that is going red and alarming.
1 minute
I hope
30.
I hope we can do a bit to 1 minute. I'm sorry, like we have to drop, because it's we have 1 minute left, and I just wanted to wrap up maybe this conversation that we have had, and I think we had very great sharing of practices, and I would like to, because we end this COP hopefully on a high note. We have this declaration that was launched at the beginning. We're still waiting for the more positive outcomes in the formal process under UNFCCC and negotiations. But what would be, very shortly, and we in FAO, in our events, we sometimes ask the what would be your final tweet? So what would be your expectation, and what can be achieved in the next year when we meet again in Baku, as I understand? So let's start with Vivian, and then...
Parting shot? or what we look forward. By the time we meet, I believe we should be able to better target our innovations. And so my Q2 call is gender disaggregated data, very important. Thank you.
I believe that we came up with very simple demands as the youth, and I know that they can all be met. And for the farmers, it's my hope and prayer that we can be able to get climate resilient crop support to improve our livelihoods and also just to increase production for our growing population. Thank you.
Yes. First of all, we'll be increasing climate finance to smallholder farmers beyond the 1.5% that we see. Hopefully, we get to see 17 next year. But more essentially, a redefinition of smallholder farming as a concept from just the number of farmers you farm to qualify as a smallholder farmer to more looking at productivity instead of just looking at how many acres I farm. But let's focus on productivity for feeding the world.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just one sentence. My wish is that farm food climate will stay on the agendas of the following COPs, because, as my minister said, we are not powerless.
Yeah.
We have the power, and we need the future. Future is also food.
My wish is increase the demand and the market for the organic products.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to close the session. Thank you all for the wonderful contributions.
Thanks a lot to the moderator.